It is the 4th of January 2022, and you know what that means? It means we have 5 days more to the African Cup of Nations, the third edition, and the Super Eagles of Nigeria will be plying their trade as they seek a 4th continental title. It's on that note I welcome you to today's edition of the show. I'm Samson Oloide. It promises to be exciting, and as I promised you yesterday, we'll be reviewing the teams participating at the African Cup of Nations, and definitely charity will begin at home. We'll take you through the 28-man list. You must know that it's no longer a 23-man list. CAF has decided to expand it to 28-man list. So we have 28 players who will be representing Nigeria, and every other team would also have 28 players. So it's not just the Super Eagles of Nigeria. Gone were the days of 23-man list, so to speak. The 28-man list, I'll give you a review of the players as well as those who missed out due to injury as well as testing positive for the COVID-19 pandemic. Once again, welcome to the arena. It promises to be exciting, as I said. Let's go on a quick break. When we return, we'll delve into the thick of things regards the African Cup of Nations. Thank you for joining us. It's still the arena. Now let's delve into the thick of things, the third edition of the African Cup of Nations. Remember, I said it is a tournament worth $16.2 million, talking about the prize money, and there's so much to expect when it comes to the tournament itself. The Super Eagles of Nigeria are being drawn in Group D, where they will face Egypt, Sudan, as well as Guinea-Bissau. Now, we would have to look at it from the team list itself. Let's delve into the team list, the 28-man list. It's adjusted, it must be said, the adjusted squad for the Super Eagles of Nigeria. Remember, you have, for goalkeepers, you have 4 goalkeepers listed by interim manager Austin Iguavon. You have Maduka Okoye, Francis Uzo, Daniel Akpeyi, as well as John Noble. Those are the goalkeepers. John Noble, it must be said, is the only home-based player in the list. He plays for Enyimba Football Club, Enyimba of Aba. And for the defenders, you have William Trust Ekong, you have Ola Aino, Semi Ajayi, Kenneth Umeru, Zaidu Sanusi, Chidozie Awaziem, Jamilu Collins, Tyron Ibwe, and Olisa Nda. Those are the defenders, 9 of them who will be representing us. And for the midfield, you have Wilfred Ndidi, who plays for Leicester City, Joe Aribo, you have Alex Iwobi, Frank Oyeka, as well as Kelechi Onwakali. Those are the 5 who will be representing us when it comes to the middle of the pack. And for the attackers, you have the captain of the side, Ahmed Musa, Kelechi Iheanacho, Moses Simon, Samuel Chukwueze, Peter Olayinka, Chidera Ejuke, Taiwo Awoniyi, Odion Igalo, Henry Onyekuru, as well as Sadiq Umar. That's the team list for the Super Eagles, who will be going over to Cameroon to ensure that we get a 4th title when it comes to the African Cup of Nations. Now, let's delve into the players one by one. Remember, probably our most prolific striker at this point in time, talking about Victor Osimhen, is missing this, and that's due to COVID-19, having tested positive for COVID-19, and he's been replaced by Henry Onyekuru, I beg your pardon. Henry Onyekuru has replaced Victor Osimhen in the side, and that's Henry Onyekuru on your screen. And it must be said that it's not Victor Osimhen alone who is missing out in action. You also have Dennis Emmanuel, who is missing out, and this is probably due to club issues, it must be said. Remember the issue with the NFF and Watford Football Club regards late invitation letter getting to Watford, while NFF is denying that the letter got there late, rather insisting that Watford are the ones who are trying to hold on to Dennis Emmanuel. And it must be said, it's not only Nigeria, Senegal also accused Watford yesterday of holding on to Ismail Assar, despite the fact that the player is willing to join the team when it comes to African Cup of Nations. Although in Sar's case, he has been injured since November due to a knee injury. So Watford Football Club having to contend with 2 African nations regards holding back African players from representing their countries. It's not a very good PR for Watford, and more importantly, it probably speaks volumes regards the Dennis Emmanuel saga. But Peter Olayinka is replacing him. Peter Olayinka plays for Sparta Prague, and is a decent winger as well as a decent striker, has 6 goals to his name in this season, and we should expect him I beg your pardon, we should expect him to, be able to fill in the shoes of Dennis Emmanuel appropriately. Another replacement is Tyron Ibwe. Tyron Ibwe replaces Shehu Abdullahi, and that's because Shehu Abdullahi picked up an injury. So you had the interim manager, Austin Eguavon, who had to call up Tyrone Ibwe to replace Shehu Abdullahi. Now, for Tyrone Ibwe, he's a versatile right back who can also play as a left back, and it means that he will be in contention with the likes of Jamil Collins, Ola Aino, Chidozie Awaziem, as well as Zaidu Sanusi when it comes to playing either as a left back or as a right back for the Super Eagles team at the Nations Cup. Another player who is out for the Super Eagles has to be Leon Balogun, and that's because he has been injured since November, and he couldn't meet up with time in terms of being fit for the African Cup of Nations. So you have Semiu Ajayi replacing him. Now, Semiu Ajayi is not a newbie, so to speak, when it comes to national team football. He has 15 caps, having played 15 times for Nigeria, and he played 4 matches during the qualifiers for this tournament. His last outing for Nigeria was against Sierra Leone in Freetown. So Semiu Ajayi is also one who is experienced, and his experience should count, although definitely would miss the defensive stability that Leon Balogun brings to the Super Eagles defense. But someone like Semiu Ajayi is definitely capable of replacing him. Tyrone Ibwe, as I said earlier, is also capable of replacing Shehu Abdullahi, and you have Peter Olayinka replacing Dennis Emmanuel, and Henry Onyekuru replacing Victor Osimhen. The team are training in Abuja. Remember, they've made Abuja as a training base ahead of their travel to Cameroon, and the team are still training. You have over 14 players in camp right now, so the numbers are increasing. And there you have them training at the MKO Abiola Stadium, which was formerly known as the National Stadium Abuja. It has been renamed as the MK Abiola Stadium. So the team are getting ready, and Austin Eguavon is definitely keeping close eye on who will make the team when it comes to the starting 11. Remember, our first match of the competition is against the Pharaohs of Egypt on the 11th of January, which is just 7 days from now, and it's going to take place at Garoua in Cameroon. So we need to start the competition on a good note, and it's a very stern test when you consider that the Pharaohs of Egypt have a certain Liverpool player who is probably a Liverpool legend, talking about Mohamed Salah. So there's so much to look forward to talking about the African Cup of Nations. I've stated earlier, when it comes to prize money, it's about $16.2 million. That's the pool. And I've told you earlier that CAF has given $260,000 to each team to be able to prepare adequately for the competition. And the essence of giving the preliminary preparatory money is to ensure that all teams have good preparations for the tournament itself, and that's because CAF understands that not all federations have the financial capability to prepare as adequately as they should when it comes to the African Cup of Nations. Now, this $260,000 preparatory fund is not for free. It will be deducted from the premiums at the end of the competition. For every team participating at the group stage, it's $476,000, and that's lots of money. So even when you deduct the $260,000, you still have over $200,000 to go home with. That's for teams that crash out of the group stage. But for teams that make it up to the quarterfinals, $800,000 awaits them. For semi-finalists, $2 million, and $2.5 million, I beg your pardon. It's up from $2 million, which was what was obtainable in 2019. And you can rest assured that for the finalists, the prize money is definitely more than $2.5 million. The winners go home with $5 million, while the runners-up will go home with $3 million. So that's so much money. The Super Eagles earned $2 million at the last edition of the African Cup of Nations by finishing third. This time around, if they finish third again, they'll go home with $2.5 million. But we do not want third. We're tired of getting the bronze medal. We definitely want to go 2 steps ahead, talking about the gold medal. And you know what it is? $5 million. That's what the winners get for this edition of the African Cup of Nations. Now, let's go on a quick break right now. When we return, we'll be looking at the Super Eagles players in terms of their positions and how well they can fit into the team to ensure that we get all the necessary results at the African Cup of Nations. Please do stay tuned.
Powerful looks command respect, they say. The perfect body, the perfect grooming, and ultimately the perfect skin. Looks, style, and grooming makes the ultimate man. I've found a ridiculously easy way to make my skin always feel epic. My name is Neo. I found Blemiviv, and now my skin finally makes sense.
Thanks for staying tuned. It's still the African Cup of Nations special segment talking about our countdown to the third edition of the African Cup of Nations. Now it's time to preview the Super Eagles, and ahead of the match itself against Egypt, we need to look at the players and how they'll fit into the team. Remember, Austin Eguavoen is not new to the national team setup. Beyond being the technical advisor of the Nigerian Football Federation, he has also held the position he currently holds, talking about the Super Eagles job, and he led us to a third place finish. So this time around, I'm sure he will be trying to get a step further. Let's start with the goalkeepers, and we're looking at Maduka Okoye. Yes, he seems to be our number one right about now, and that's since Carl Ikeme had to retire from football due to his health issues. Now for Maduka Okoye, is a goalkeeper that we can rely on, but there's still question marks regards his ability to command his area. Talking about the technical area, and let's see how it pans out. There's still Francis Uzoho in the mix as well, and Uzoho, I don't think, inspired confidence from anyone due to his showings at the national team level, but it's still good enough as a backup. The big question is who becomes the number one at the African Cup of Nations. Is it going to be Maduka Okoye, or is certain Daniel Akpeyi, who has been in the Super Eagles team for so long and is also doing quite well with his club in South Africa, talking about Kaizer Chiefs. Now, for Daniel Akpeyi, he's playing on a regular basis. We see him pull off spectacular saves, and I think he will definitely give Maduka Okoye a run for his money. Remember, John Noble, who plays for Enyimba Football Club, is also in the mix as well. The goalkeepers are training hard, and under the watchful eye of Austin Eguavoen, the interim manager. I'm sure he will be keeping tabs at the goalkeeper that impresses him the most with the reflexes as well as the coordination, especially defensively, to ensure that we have a very good defense line that would not concede so many goals, especially as we look to start the first match of our campaign on a good note against the Pharaohs of Egypt. Now let's move away from there to the defenders. You have William Trust Ekong. This is a reliable man who has always played at the heart of defense for the Super Eagles, although his partner won't be playing. Talking about Liam Balogun, who is out injured and has been replaced by Semiu Ajayi. But for William Trust Ekong, he's definitely someone we can reckon with. Yes, he made a mistake that led to the goal which we lost when talking about the Central African Republic loss right here at Surulere, the Teslim Balogun Stadium. But he's someone we can still rely on, and you want to fancy his chances of being in the first 11, talking about the Super Eagles team list. Now, you have Ola Aino, who plays in Italy, in the Italian Serie A, left back. It's probably going to be our left back in there. You also have Zaidu Soni in the mix. There's Chidozie Awaziam, who seems to have locked the right back position, although that could also be up for grabs, considering the fact that Tyrone Ibwe is also back in the team. So let's see how that pans out. You also have Jamilu Collins in the mix as well, and then there's Olisa Unda in the mix. The middle of the pack is where it gets interesting, talking about the midfield. Leicester City's Wilfred Ndidi, I'm sure, has locked down the defensive midfield role. We see him virtually week in, week out in the Premier League, and he puts up sterling performances when it comes to the defensive midfield position. So he's not a player who is not just a defensive rock, he also offers you something going forward in terms of the pace as well as the strength. And it must be said, he's also got an eye for goal, especially when it comes to long range attempts. So you have in the mix, there's Joe Aribo, who, well, not necessarily a 10 in that sense, in the traditional sense of a 10, but has what it takes to make, you know, creative chances for the team. So you would fancy that Joe Aribo will get playing minutes at the African Cup of Nations. There's Alex Nwobi as well, who a stay in the team has been a bit confusing, because we've seen Genero in time past deploy him as a 10, you know, just behind the striker. We've also seen him being deployed to the wings, although I think Raw favored him playing as a creative midfielder. And the question regards where exactly does it fit in? Is he that kind of a 10 that we should expect when it comes to creativity, or we should just make use of his strength in terms of his pace to draft him to the wings? But regardless of where you want to place, you know, Alex Nwobi, it will definitely come in handy. And I think just behind the striker, not necessarily a 10, but, you know, the ability to drive the ball forward, that's something that we should count on. Now, you also have Frank Onyeka in the mix as well. That's someone who you most likely expect to play a fringe role for the Super Eagles of Nigeria, talking about having depth on the bench. You also have Kelechi Nwakali. We've seen him right from the under-17 World Cup, where he shone like a million stars. He was the captain of the side, and ever since, you know, he's had a good career trajectory, so to speak, having played for Porto's second team at some point. So for Nwakali, definitely he should be able to get a chance. Hopefully, you know, maybe in a dead rubber game, especially if we've been able to seal qualification prior to our last match. Now, for the attackers, that's where we have an array of talent. Depending on the formation that Austin Eguavoen would deploy, it's difficult to, you know, ascertain who will go through. Talking about, you know, the starters, you could have 2 strikers in the match if he goes for a 4-4-2, and it could be 3 if he goes for the traditional 4-3-3. And let's start with the captain of the side, Ahmed Musa. In recent times, he's been playing fringe roles, coming on as a sub, and that's quite understandable. Age is catching up, and you have other players who are probably more in form and, you know, have a better pace than he does at this point in time in his career. So Ahmed Musa has definitely given it all, the most capped Nigerian when it comes to national team football, and you just have to give him his dues. I do not think he would start matches at the Nations Cup, but I think at some point he will get look-ins, probably coming to, you know, secure the game with his wealth of experience and man management of the game itself. But let's see how Austin Eguavoen is ready to deploy the captain of the side. I think he will definitely get minutes at some point. You also have Kelechi Iheanacho. Well, what more can we say? He had a great 2021, scored over 20 goals in the year, also had over 10 assists. He had a very good time, although injuries over the last few weeks have denied him a place in terms of consistency at Leicester City. But we know what Kelechi Iheanacho brings to the table anytime, any day, especially with the Super Eagles of Nigeria. During the qualifiers, he got a brace against Liberia. So there's every tendency or every, you know, chance that he will get to start matches at the African Cup of Nations. Now, the big question is, if it's a 2-man attack, who are the 2 strikers Eguavoen will decide to go for to lead the attack of the Super Eagles? And if it's going to be a 3-man attack, talking about a 3-pronged attack, a 4-3-3 traditionally, who are the 3? It's yet to be seen, but you want to fancy your chances that Kelechi Iheanacho will probably get a look in, most likely from the left-hand side, so that I can cut in, or right-hand side, I beg your pardon, so that I can cut into his favorite left foot and drill the shots in. You have Moses Simon as well, who plays in France. Lots of pace, strength. He's just your typical, you know, Odion Gallo kind of striker, though he doesn't play centrally like Odion Gallo. So there's so much to look forward to from Moses Simon. May not get to start matches, but you can rest assured he will come in and get minutes. It's definitely not going to be those kind of substitutions that come in the 80th or 90th minute. He will probably get in as early as the 60th minute if there's a need for him to, you know, effect changes to the game. Another player to look out for is Samuel Chukwueze, and this is where it gets interesting. The Villarreal man had a very wonderful assist yesterday as his team ran out 5-0 winners. And for Samuel Chukwueze, we know what he brings to the table with his left foot. Now, there will probably be competition between Samuel Chukwueze and Kelechi Iheanacho. Similar playing styles. The strength is there as well. And more importantly, they play from both sides. Although at Leicester City, sometimes you have Kelechi Iheanacho deployed down the middle. But it's yet to be seen if Eguavoen will decide to do that with Iheanacho in the Super Eagles, or Chukwueze would have to come in from the right-hand side. Let's see. We want that kind of rivalry between our players, healthy rivalries that will bring out the very best in them. And I think Kelechi Iheanacho and Samuel Chukwueze are in for some duel, especially in the training field. Now, you also have Peter Olayinka. Peter Olayinka most times plays for Slavia Prague, and oftentimes is deployed to the wings. He's your kind of Firmino kind of striker. He doesn't get the goals all the time. You probably do not even hear of him. He doesn't get the glory, because when it comes to his stats in terms of goals and assists, you probably do not see him regularly on the score sheet. But when it comes to the work ethic, virtually everything good that his club does is always the one, the driving force behind it. So Peter Olayinka, I beg your pardon, is someone who would get a look in at some point. Remember, he replaced Dennis Emmanuel in the team, and I'm sure he would get some minutes under his belt at the African Cup of Nations. You also have Taiwo Awoniyi, and now this is a player that so many Nigerians have called out for, to the Super Eagles over the years. Although he's been denied the chance due to the exploits of Odion Igalo, among others, in the attacking line. This time around, he has a chance to stake his claim, and he's doing quite well in the Bundesliga. I mean, when you have Haaland, you have Lewandowski, it's quite understandable if you're not topping the sheets or you're not even among the top 2, top 3. But for Taiwo Awoniyi, he's still young, and definitely he should be able to get 1 or 2 minutes under his belt. There's Odion Igalo in the mix, and there were the controversies regards Al-Shabaab is Al-Hab rather is Saudi Arabian club not willing to release him for the tournament, among others. Well, there's nothing to say about Odion Igalo, the highest goal scorer for Nigeria during the African Cup of Nations in 2019, and you can rest assured that if he gets into the team, it will definitely deliver. His wealth of experience is immense and definitely will come in handy for the Super Eagles of Nigeria. Okay, yes, that's how much we can take on African Cup of Nations when it comes to, the preview of the Super Eagles team. And subsequently, as tomorrow, we would look at the various groups, starting from Group A, where you have the defending champions and the host, Cameroon, where they would also be playing. From there, we'll take it down all through the groups. Now, let's delve into club football, talking about European club football. In the Premier League yesterday, it was Manchester United against Wolverhampton Wanderers, and it was a shocking result, really, for Manchester United. They slumped to a 1-0 defeat, and it took a late goal from João Moutinho to get Wolves past them. And it must be said that for Ralf Rangnick and his men, there's still so much to do, still much work to do, especially when it comes to getting United back on track. Wolves will feel it was a well-deserved victory. David De Gea once again had pulled up several spectacular saves, and is probably the reason United are not down the table when it comes to league positions. They're still 7th, and without the exploits of the Spanite, they'll probably be 10th or even worse off at this point in time. But for United, it was a frustrating day. Phil Jones came back after 2 years out injured, and it was good to see the Englishman get minutes under his belt. More importantly was the fact that he put up an impressive performance, was a thorn in the flesh for Raul Jimenez all through. And it must be said that for United, the defensive crisis of Maguire and Victor Lindelof, who are out, who is out injured too, the return of Phil Jones is just at the right time. So I'm sure Ralf Rangnick will be looking to give the Englishman more minutes as the season progresses. But the unbeaten start to Ralf Rangnick has ended, and it's more of a reality check, so to speak. This United team is still not good enough. There's so many issues that needs to be sorted out. Although they were unlucky in the match not to get a point to having hit the crossbar, and Wolverhampton Wanderers also struck the crossbar with a free kick. At the end of the day, over the course of 90 minutes, you just get the feeling that Wolverhampton Wanderers did more to get all 3 points, and it was well deserved. Now, away from the English Premier League, let's move on now to France rather, and it was the Coupe de France that took place yesterday, talking about the French Cup. And Paris Saint-Germain were in action against Vannes, and it was Kylian Mbappe who got a hat-trick in the match to lift them into the round of 16. Remember, Lionel Messi couldn't play in here. He tested positive for COVID-19, so he's isolating and will miss a couple of matches. You also have Neymar, in the mix as well, who is still battling with fitness. So it was all on Kylian Mbappe, and you had Kipembe, the captain, getting the scoring, getting on the score sheet first before Kylian Mbappe got his hat-trick to seal a 4-0 win over Vannes to ensure that Paris Saint-Germain are into the round of 16 of the French Cup, also known as the Coupe de France. And it was well deserved. I don't think we were expecting anything different. The golfing class was just too much. And when you consider the quality in terms of the individual players, there was no brainer that Paris Saint-Germain will run out winners, and they did that in comfortable fashion. So round of 16, it gets tougher here, and let's see who they draw in the round of 16. But for Paris Saint-Germain and Kylian Mbappe, the story continues. Remember, Mbappe is yet to sign a contract extension, and his contract ends at the end of the season. So for Paris Saint-Germain, they will still be hoping that he changes his mind and are able to talk to him. But at this point in time, Kylian Mbappe is a free agent because it's January and the transfer window is on. Talking about FIFA rules, when a player has 6 months or less on his contract, it becomes a free agent. And considering the season ends in the summer, Kylian Mbappe, as we speak, is a free agent. I'm sure Real Madrid are at a lot, Manchester City are at a lot. In fact, the whole big teams are at a lot to see if they can snap up one of the world's best when it comes to football. Remember, I also won the Golden Globe, the Globe Soccer Awards just about a week ago, talking about Kylian Mbappe as the best men's player of the year 2021. So now let's talk about business. Let's talk about the business aspect of sports. And we'll have to start with motorsports, where the value of a NASCAR Cup Series team charter has reached $12 million, which is double last year's asking price. Talking about NASCAR racing. But we'll delve into that fully after this short break. Please do stay tuned.
Powerful looks command respect, they say. The perfect body, the perfect grooming, and ultimately the perfect skin. Looks, style, and grooming makes the ultimate man. Found a ridiculously easy way to make my skin always feel epic. My name is Neo. I found Blemiville, and now my skin finally makes sense.
Thanks for staying tuned. Now let's talk business. And as I mentioned earlier, we'll start with the world of motorsports, where the value of a NASCAR Cup Series team charter has reached $12 million, doubling last year's asking price of $6 million. Now, charters were implemented in 2016 by executives and team owners, and they provide teams with increased business certainty and the ability to work in conjunction with NASCAR. The surge in value is the result of increased demand in NASCAR with the introduction of the next-gen car and a revamped business model which promotes cost saving. There are 36 charters in a field of 40 cars that compete in the NASCAR Cup Series. Now, the good and bad NASCAR went from a public company to a private one in 2019 after buying the balance of International Speedway Corporation for roughly $2 billion. Now, the value of a NASCAR car series will definitely charter that, and let's see if they will be able to go through when it comes to the the ability to rake in more money. But the surges have doubled right about now. I'm talking about the value of charters, and let's see how that fares when it comes to the world of motorsports. Now, moving on from there to the NFL, that's the National Football League. The NFL's Inspire Change program is well on its way to its 10-year goal of contributing $250 million to social justice-focused organizations. The initiative and Players Coalition have contributed $180 million to date. In 2017, Inspire Change committed to donate $250 million to organizations focused on education, economic advancement, police community relations, and criminal justice reforms. Now, talking about another business sport, Authentic Brands Group is purchasing a 55% stake in David and Victoria Beckham's DB Ventures for $271 million. DB Ventures controls the Soccer Stars deals with Tudor Watches and Haiger Whiskey. The company is reportedly looking to pay off debt while generating capital growth, which it has for $90 million in total revenue. Beckham repurchased his previously sold stakes from Simon Fuller's XRX Entertainment for $50 million in 2019, one of his several major deals in recent years. Having purchased Reebok for $2.4 billion in August, as well as announcing it will postpone its scheduled IPO until 2023 or 2024 in order to bring in capital from private equity firms, Authentic Brands Group is valued at $12.7 billion. And that's it on sports business when it comes to this segment of the show. We'll wrap up the show quickly with a bit of basketball, talking about the Grizzlies against the Nets, the Brooklyn Nets. It was meant to be a big match, but it was big on paper. But you had the Grizzlies, trouncing the Nets, talking about Ja Morant scoring 36 points and leading the Grizzlies past the Brooklyn Nets, who were led by Kevin Durant. This was a match that was filled with different fluctuating momentums. At some point, it was about the Nets having the leads, and at some point as well, leads changed hands basically about 5 times, but it was Ja Morant who was able to steer the Grizzlies past the Nets for successive losses for the Nets. While for the Grizzlies, it's the 5th win in a row, and it means that playoff games are heating up, and playoff sports definitely are getting more competitive. It's on that note I say thank you so much for joining me. That's the size of the package for today's edition of the show. Our countdown to the African Cup of Nations continues, and we'll begin to review various teams and groups tomorrow, where we'll start with the Group A, where you have the defending champions and the host, talking about Cameroon. I'm Samson Lady. Thank you so much to your production crew, and thank you to our viewers for watching. Do stay blessed.